In the vast, silent theater of space, discoveries rarely arrive with spectacle. They don't thunder across the heavens with trumpet calls or announce themselves with cosmic fireworks. More often, they creep into our awareness through the faintest anomalies, a pulse in the data, a strange deviation in orbital paths, a spectral signature that lingers too long where it shouldn't. That's exactly how it began with 3I, Atlas. At first glance, it was nothing remarkable. Another interstellar traveler, another nameless object passing through, like Oumuamua in 2017 or Borisov in 2019. We've seen such visitors before, icy wanderers or rocky fragments drifting aimlessly between stars, pulled temporarily into our sight before vanishing back into the endless dark. But this one was different. Larger, faster, stranger. And when the James Webb Space Telescope, humanity's most advanced eye in the sky, turned its gaze upon this new arrival, what it saw defied every principle of natural celestial motion. It wasn't its sheer size that alarmed scientists, though the object dwarfed every other interstellar visitor on record. It wasn't even its blistering speed, over 130,000 miles per hour, fast enough to circle Earth 5 times in a single minute. The terror, the creeping, paralyzing realization, came from what Webb detected trailing behind it. A glow. Not chaotic. Not the random scatter of comet dust. A glow that was steady, measured, and directional. A glow that looked less like a tail and more like exhaust. If 3I, Atlas was shedding propulsion, then it wasn't just moving, it was navigating. And if it was navigating, if it was steering, then someone, or something, was at the helm. Natural objects do not behave like this. They don't appear suddenly from nowhere, glide through planetary gravitational wells with the grace of practiced pilots, and accelerate without obvious cause. And yet that's precisely what Atlas was doing. Astronomers tracked its path, expecting the usual hyperbolic trajectory of an interstellar rock. A one-time flyby, never to return. Instead, what they saw made their stomachs tighten. Its orbit was not just hyperbolic, it was intentional, its movements too precise to be dismissed as chance. And then came the size estimates. Not a few hundred feet like Oumuamua. Not even a couple of miles like Borisov. Atlas stretched somewhere between 6 and 9 miles across, an object the size of Manhattan moving at impossible speeds. By every known law of physics, something that large should have fractured under stress, torn apart by its own velocity. Yet Atlas held together. Stable. Silent. Controlled. Even more unnerving, its trajectory didn't weaken as it encountered planetary giants. Quite the opposite. As it skimmed past Mars and then Earth, its speed increased. It wasn't being pulled, it was using gravity. Executing flawless slingshots, the same gravitational assists NASA engineers painstakingly plan for probes like Voyager or Cassini. Except Atlas did it instinctively, naturally, like a predator weaving through the currents of its hunting ground. And then, without warning, the tail appeared, not dust, not gas, but a directional stream of energy. That was the moment the Jet Propulsion Laboratory dropped the word no one wanted to hear aloud: vehicle. The horror deepened when its flight path was modeled. At first, Atlas seemed to be making a harmless tour of the system. But the more precisely astronomers tracked its course, the more unsettling it became. It skimmed Mars, carefully avoiding capture. Then it curved in an arc that brought it close to Earth, but hidden, shielded by the sun's glare at the moment of nearest approach. From there it swung toward Venus, then angled toward Jupiter. 4 planets, perfectly arranged in a sequence that maximized observational opportunity while minimizing the chance of detection. The odds of a natural object threading such a path are effectively zero, less than 0.005%. This was not random motion. This was a plan. And if the plan was reconnaissance, then Atlas was not just a visitor. It was a surveyor. Then came the timing. Data analysis suggested Atlas began its journey toward us nearly 8,000 years ago, precisely when humanity first rose from scattered tribes into civilization. Around the time we built our first cities, carved our first written words, and raised megaliths into the sky. If Atlas was sent then, it wasn't by coincidence. It was in response. For decades, the James Webb Space Telescope was meant to be our most powerful window into the universe. What no one expected was that it would also be a mirror, revealing something already staring back. When Webb turned its instruments on Atlas, the data it returned was anything but natural. The glow was not the cold vapor of comet ice but hot, structured emission. Pulses of energy repeating every 19 seconds, each pulse altering the object's trajectory with surgical precision. Course corrections. And then came the most damning revelation: traces of exotic materials embedded in the exhaust. Compounds with electromagnetic properties that don't occur in nature, resembling superconductors more advanced than anything humans can manufacture. Atlas was not just flying. It was signaling. Not toward Earth. Outward. Into the deep. What if Oumuamua had been the scout, and Atlas was the sentinel? That's when whispers began spreading through research circles. The propulsion wasn't simply thrust. Encoded in the exhaust itself were patterns, binary-like modulations, harmonics, prime sequences. Signals wrapped in fire. And then the first chilling correlations arrived. The patterns were being mirrored on Earth. Magnetic sensors across the planet began detecting synchronized pulses. Birds altered migration routes. Whales beached themselves in coordinated waves across continents. Satellites faltered, as though something in Earth's own crust was answering back. The theory, whispered but growing louder: Atlas wasn't sending a message to Earth. It was activating something within it. And then, as abruptly as it began, the signal ceased. The exhaust vanished. Atlas went cold. At first, the silence was celebrated. Maybe it had malfunctioned. Maybe its systems had died. But the celebration was short-lived, because Atlas hadn't slowed. It was still accelerating. Still on course. Still perfect. It hadn't broken. It had finished. At the exact moment its propulsion ceased, both Voyager probes, silent travelers at the edge of interstellar space, picked up the same faint anomaly. A low-bandwidth pulse, identical, simultaneous, aligned with Atlas's silence. A trigger. A command. Something had just been activated. Not here, not on Earth, but out there. And then Webb caught something even more disturbing. Light from distant stars was bending around Atlas in ways no object of its mass could account for. Gravitational lensing, but without the mass. And worse, the lensing wasn't stable. It shifted. Reacted. Whenever Earth beamed signals toward Atlas, the distortion changed, like ripples on living water. It was no longer behaving like a spacecraft. It was behaving like a gate. The final revelation did not happen in deep space but on the Moon. Days after Atlas went silent, seismic instruments registered a pulse beneath a mascon, a dense mass anomaly buried under an ancient crater. Long dismissed as geological coincidence, the region suddenly glowed with heat. Every 11 seconds, it pulsed. The same rhythm as Atlas's exhaust. Atlas wasn't just surveying Earth. It was communicating with the Moon. Something buried beneath the surface had just been woken. For decades, we believed first contact would come with a signal, a clear greeting across the void. But maybe it was never about speaking to us. Maybe it was about activating something else. Oumuamua was the lock. Atlas is the key. And now the key has turned. So what wakes next? This is not just astronomy. It is the story of a machine older than our civilization, executing a plan beyond our comprehension. It is not asking for permission. It is not asking for recognition. It is not speaking to us at all. The silence between the stars may not be empty. It may only be the breath before the reply.